All right, we are live. I am Chad Khan from DipJar. I'm here with Lindsay Crossland from the Salvation Army, and I'm happy everyone's here to join us. Feel free to sign up in the chat, say hi, say where you're from. It'd be great to hear all the different Salvation Army locations we have here. But I'm going to let Lindsay introduce herself, and then we'll go from there.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. We really wanted to just get this opportunity together to connect you with Chad at DipJar and to start sharing some ideas on how we can all use DipJar in the future at Christmas, outside of Christmas, and really just start the conversation rolling. So we hope this will be a really great jumping off point for you guys. Feel free to ask any questions, and we're always here for follow-up. So even if we don't answer your question today or you think of something afterwards, we are here to serve. So Chad, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, Joelle from Metro Atlanta Area Command, Margaret from Tallahassee, Paul from Savannah, Jamie from Orlando. That's awesome, and Aaron from Aaron Odom and Larry Haskell. Oh, from Savannah, Georgia, also, and St. Augustine Corps. That's awesome. Everyone's from everywhere. Oh, a lot of South people from Macon, Georgia. Paul, that's awesome. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I'm happy this is a big interest for everyone, and happy there's a demand for this. But basically, I'm here to talk about, sometimes the red kettle with DipJar is a great way to use DipJar. Great. But, I've seen a lot of people said, hey, it was just okay. We'd love some other ideas for when you use DipJar, whether it's Christmas, whether it's, this spring season, summer, whatever. So I think I'm here to just, give you some nice ideas. I'm going to breeze through a lot of different things. Wow, everyone's signing up. This is awesome. Hey, Walter,
Yeah.
Cynthia, Karen,
Hey,
Saul.
Lucy. Hey, Karen.
That's great. Say hello to some friends. If you guys recognize people in the chat that feel free to have a conversation. You can ask questions along the way, but we'll have a real Q&A at the end. But yeah, super cool. So next slide, a little table of contents. So we're going to talk about some basics of like why DipJar, when DipJar, how to be good at DipJar. That might be for some of you who don't have DipJars yet. Maybe your location has 1 to 2 to 3, and some locations I know have a couple dozen. So I'm just going to kind of go from the basics, and then we can answer some more complications from there. Kim, if you're missing sound, there should be a refresh button at the top. Feel free to go ahead and press that. That should give you connection. And then we're going to talk about some outdoor events, galas, small fundraisers, how to improve Christmas season, and coffee shops and restaurants. So there's a lot of information here, and hopefully Lindsay will help me connect it to everything that you guys are doing. Okay, so why use DipJar? So there's a couple of cool reasons, I think. There's convenience. It's, hey, Square Reader is too complicated. We don't have Wi-Fi in our location, or we just want one step. All great. But, in a perfect world, and me and Lindsay talked about this a lot, in a perfect world, DipJar is here to make you, to have you have, a huge increase in donations, more donations than you have been before. So it's great to use this, in a spontaneous way to, help push for bigger gifting, for bigger gifting without being too pushy. So with DipJar, because it's a fixed dollar amount, the one-step donation, it's not too complicated. You're able to ask people for more donations and be, a little more pushy with it without being too offensive. So I think it's an awesome thing to keep it, really fun, fast, easy, and secure. Like most of this could be in a coffee shop where you don't exactly have a volunteer there, or it could be, you give it to someone for a birthday party who wants to raise money for your cause. It could be for a lot of different scenarios, and there's a lot of flexibility here. Next page, when to use DipJar. This is really funny. I feel like where, when, how, why, all the different questions. So yeah, so I think really, in my opinion, what I've seen is events are the best scenario. And, this might be a hot topic because I know a lot of you guys are saying, well, red kettles have been pretty good. We use it a lot there, or coffee shops have been awesome. But I think events are good to look at as a primary use case. And when you're not running events, it's good to use it in daily usage for coffee shop, restaurant with a cash register, or, other ways to use it there. So I would definitely focus on your events and definitely think about these next 6 months leading up to Christmas, and of course throughout the Christmas season. When are my big events, and when this can incorporate it? Of course, I'm going to give you more ideas throughout this presentation, but 5Ks, galas, your annual dinners. I heard golf tournaments are big, and live auctions. So there's a lot of different ways And, it's great when people, if they have a certain amount of cash, maybe not a ton of cash, but they want to give more, or, maybe writing a check is an option, but not exactly fun. So if you give someone the ability to dip in a dip jar instead of write a check, you can ask them, hey, double dip. And they go, sure, why not? Spontaneous, more donations, like that. So I guess our first topic, and Lindsay, maybe you can talk about, more so mulligans and golf events and all these different ideas there. But let's start with 5Ks. Hey, Kim, just real quick, just try and refresh again if that didn't work. But I think, and everyone let me know if you're also having connection issues, but I think we're doing okay. But
yeah, and if anyone has any issues, we are recording it, so we'll be able to send it out later, and you'll have the sound. I'm sorry, Kim, if you're having issues.
Yeah, sorry, Kim, but this will be in a great blog post. We'll send it out directly to your email, most likely tomorrow. So basically with this, a good idea is to connect the donation where the money is going. I'm just not going to read directly off the PowerPoint this whole time, but I think it's great to, up the dollar amount with this. It's great to say, hey, donate $5, and people go, $5 is not a big deal, but I think it's with some good wording, you can take this and have your dollar amount higher, push it to $20, $25. But, with that, people have to have a good reason to why they're donating this much money. You have to have some sort of liner where it's every $25 does this. If we hit our goal of $1,000, we'll be able to open a new location, or we'll be able to be pretty good with. I'm not exactly really familiar everything the Salvation Army does. Maybe it's more donation centers. Maybe it's more stuff you do. So I think it's great to connect it to connect the dollar amount that's posted on the dip jar with that single donation towards your cause, whether it's a general thing or it's, hey, every $25 keeps the lights on for 1 more week or something like that. So then from there, I think it's great just to make everyone aware that you're using your dip jars, have the DJ, MC, whatever, say, hey, everyone, we're using dip jars. Like, it's really easy. People are walking around with them. Easy dip, have it on the stage, actually have someone dip, and then hear the sound. And, for those of you who haven't used DipJar, it's really funny, and it still surprises me every time I see people use it, but people actually have fun with this, with the sounds and lights and stuff like that. So it's really all the small things that get people interested, and it's, small cheap thrills that people love. But I know what I was talking to Lindsay about, that golf outings are even bigger than 5Ks for you all. So Lindsay, maybe if we can start that conversation and then we can kind of go back and forth. But I think first and foremost, mulligans are a great way to use DipJar. Maybe it's like you can have, a DipJar with the group of people that are going across. And, maybe it's like, if it's a pretty high roller event, hey, $100 if you want that ball back, something like that. And people, who have the money will go, okay. But maybe, let's talk about, I guess, how the structure is for that golf event. Lindsay, if you have just an idea of how the structure is, then we can just kind of talk about different ideas we can use it for different golf events throughout the year.
Yeah, something to keep in mind with events is to make sure you have the dip jar available for things that they aren't already going to pay for. So if they're already coming to your golf tournament, maybe don't use the dip jar to pay for their registration. Like if it's $100 to register and they were already going to do that by check or by some other method, if they've already would do that online, try to think of the dip jars as icing, like as the extra fun thing that's going to push them to do something that they weren't already going to do. So if they were already going to pay, $1,000 in a check, don't try to push them towards your dip jar. Use the dip jar for things like mulligans or auction items, things like that. Special giveaways, drawings. And that would be across all of your events, not just golf tournaments. But try to think of it as the extra thing that they're going to do that they weren't already planning on doing when they got up that morning to come to your event.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great topic. And I think, like you said, with that, it's not just golf tournaments, or it's not even just galas. Like there's a lot of different things, small events, big events, what have you, that this works for. I think another cool thing, even let's take a live auction, for example, or some sort of giveaway at the end of a golf tournament, or we have, a nice gathering afterwards. It could be something where, especially if you have a good amount of people there, it's, hey, if you didn't get, if you weren't able to, successfully win a live auction and give away your money and donate something, you have a dip jar set to $100 to $250, something higher, and say, hey, if you want to give You can just donate right now, and make it kind of appealing for them, where it's like in front of everybody and make them feel good and give them that opportunity. I always say, in a lot of situations, whether or not you like it, a lot of people are selfish givers, and that could be just for that warm fuzzy feeling inside. It could be, hey, I want a hat with my donation. So whatever that is, I think it's always good to try and give people what they want in some, give people an opportunity to donate and get something in return, whether it's physical or not. And in this case, it could be, hey, after the live auction, everyone's sees someone on the mic, but you have dozens of people, if not 100 people sitting in tables. It's, hey, come on down, dip right now in front of everybody, and kind of make yourself feel good. People are clapping. It's a cool thing. So to get extra donations on that end that might not happen. Spontaneity is so key. With that in mind, I would say it's really a great idea to have volunteers near the dip jars. One big mistake I see a lot of people do, and we'll talk about this throughout the rest of the presentation, but sometimes I see people kind of have a table, leave the dip jars there, and next thing you know, the whole party is, for some reason, one way, shape, or form, is on the other side of the room or something. And I think it's always important to have a volunteer near the dip jars, just to start conversation, be a friendly face. I'm sure a lot of people going to Salvation Army events know what you guys do, and of course, you're doing the most good. So it's really good to have someone say, hey, this is directly where the money's going, or being able to talk about, oh, it'd be so great, we're close to our goal, just to talk up the donation and be a friendly face to talk to people that day.
Right. That definitely goes along with the why did somebody give? Because they were asked.
Exactly.
They're much more likely to give, especially through the dip jar, this thing they may not be familiar with, if someone is there encouraging them, making it a little bit more familiar, telling them how it works, where it goes. And that's another benefit we think where DipJar is so much better than just having a credit card machine. The training takes about 5 seconds for a volunteer. It's much less fussy, and it's fun with the sound, and it's just a lot more user friendly. So I totally agree with having a staff member or volunteer there to kind of encourage and draw attention to it, and make it a little bit more familiar. And it adds some credibility too. That you can have somebody there saying where the money goes, this is how it works, isn't it fun, try it out. So definitely a good pro tip.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who might not have a dip jar, it comes with your logo on it and it looks real nice, so that adds to the credibility of it. But of course, it's really great to have someone there to talk up everything. So for this slide, we have how to use DipJar for big and small events, and just some traditional ideas I see. For those of you who have a lot of dip jars, just having a dip jar at every table. Maybe it's something where, like we talked about before, just to have people, give them the option to donate in front of their peers. It's just a really cool idea. And maybe there's some way to facilitate that, some fun idea. Maybe it's hey, whichever table donates the most gets a prize, something like that. And then you can go on your dashboard and keep track of everyone who donates and which table. You can name each dip jar, table 1, table 2, table 3, and you can see at the end of the night, or even in real time, oh, table 4 has donated $1,000. I can't believe it, something like that. In the middle, I have a pledge card and a big cross over it. I think DipJar is great for donation pledges. And by this, I'm referring to, at the end of the night, something where it's hey, I'm guessing that some of you have seen the scenario, but something where it's hey, does anyone want to pledge a certain amount of money to Salvation Army right now? Can anyone pledge 500? You see people raise their hands and everyone claps. Oh, $500 is great. 1,000, great. And it goes up from there, depending on, what, your crowd and everyone's going. I think this is a great scenario for dip jars. And a reason by this is because a lot of people in this situation fill out their pledge card saying, great, I'm gonna, donate on my way home, online or whatever, and they forget. So I think in a lot of situations, it's good to go, hey, quick, easy way of donating right here. Maybe it's $1,000 for an increment. You can just keep donating more, double dip. I'm gonna jump to Kyle's question here. At an event we hosted, some of the dips were rejected by the donor's bank. Any insight to this? That's a support question that I will get to definitely by the end of this, but I'm just gonna keep plugging through. But basically, what happens is most cards will work and it'll tell you right in real time, where if you donate and the lights will go around and that's your confirmation right in the real moment. Of course, especially with high dollar amounts, maybe this wasn't the case for you, that you weren't using high dollar amount, Kyle. Some banks won't accept, $1,000 donation. But I think most of the time when people understand using this card to donate, that usually that would work. So I think it's always best to make sure that the donor has their card facing the right way. Make sure that the DipJar has a really good connection. In a lot of cases, the DipJar has been really good at connection, but it works off the AT&T cellular connection. So you might not be, I think I would say it works in probably 99, 98% of the US, whatever that AT&T metric is. But, it's always great to test your DipJar at that location before, just to make sure it works. And we're really good providing support. So Kyle, I'm happy to follow up with you after this and talk more about that. But another good idea, maybe Lindsay, you can talk about this, since you actually sent me these pictures for this event, which is really nice of you. Thank you.
Those are actually from Kyle's event.
Oh, no kidding. So
yeah.
Kyle, so interesting. So I'd love to hear more about this, Kyle, and maybe we can talk about this event. But I guess more so, aside from that issue, Lindsay, I want to talk more about this event and what people walking around with this, what they did with their DipJars.
Yeah, Orlando recently had their gala, and I thought they had just this great idea where they had staff walk around with signs in different amounts. And as the donors wanted to give that amount, they just kind of flagged them down. And I thought it was such an engaging way to do that. Again, it's a great idea if you don't have enough, or if you don't want to put them on every table. It's kind of this giving auction idea where people are moving around. There's a lot going on. People are excited about it. You're hearing different DipJars go off all around the room. So I thought that was just stellar job by Orlando. Chad, do you want to mention DipCast?
Yes, and that's a great transition, because I see you have, I'm interested about this. You have this goal posted. Was that just manually done on that projection right there in that top picture? You know anything about that?
I don't. Orlando would have to speak to that.
No worries.
And Sharna, in answer to your question, it takes about 2 minutes for the DipJar to update the amount. You can do it from your phone, from a laptop. If it's set to 25 and you want it to be 50, it refreshes in just like a couple of minutes. So it's really really easy to update.
So it's something where you can update it, let's say, for different use cases in the night. But I wouldn't go, does Sally Johnson, I wouldn't go have her say, hey, can I donate 35 instead of 25? And go, sure, change the dollar amount in the moment. That's not exactly the best case for it. I would say, hey, you can donate 25, or if you want, you can double it for 50, or find the $10 DipJar that's rotating around and do 25 and 10. So I think there's really cool, fast ways to keep things moving, really fast without having to give too much control to your donors to say, I want to donate this exact amount. It's more like, hey, $25, yes or no, or a little higher, yes or no. Make the decision making super, super easy. Wow, Kyle, super cool to hear you had 6,500 during that ask portion of the gala. I'm loving that's an awesome use case. And Karen, yes, you can. You can do odd amounts, but full dollar amounts. So $19 is totally fine.
Yes and no. You can set it to like $11 or $19. It doesn't have to be just like around 0 or 5, but you can't put cents with it. So it'd be a whole $19, not the 12 cents. Sorry.
Great. Aaron, I'm going to answer your question real quick, and then I'm going to move on to the next slide. When the DipJar dollar amount changes, it'll update on the device. It'll do some lights will change, and then the dollar amount is always posted on the device and with LED lights. Super cool, very user friendly. We always try to make this as easy as possible for everyone to use, whether or not they've seen DipJar in the past. Moving on to the next slide. So this is more so fun and unique ideas, and this gets to what you mentioned before about DipCast. I'm going to say these first two ideas before. They're just fun, quirky ideas I've seen people do. Maybe it's like a swear jar. If maybe throughout the night people are getting tired or what have you, and they swear. It's you can have everyone kind of have a golden rule and say, oh, he sweared, dip in the DipJar, and so okay. Or I've seen another organization do something where their mission was based around not saying can't or not being negative, or being in that event was a very like I can do this and staying positive kind of mindset. So maybe it's, hey, every time you say I can't, you donate in the swear jar. And I think for them that was very awesome. This middle one, the mystery prize poll, this is great for a small event. So anytime you don't have, I'm guessing most of you have your annual dinner, your annual really big gala, but you have some small events where you have options. For this event, they had 3 DipJars. The one pictured, I believe, is $10, but they had a 25 and 50. And with that, they had 3 different levels of gift cards they had available. And you can dip in the $10 DipJar and pick a mystery gift card. Sometimes it's worth less than $10. Sometimes it's worth way more. Overall, that organization, which was Big Sister Boston, part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, they sold out so fast and made a lot of money in donations after, you know, all the fees with the gift cards were done because of that, how that works out. And then my last example here for fun and unique ideas is Dipcast. And basically with this, it's a new product we have to go along with DipJars. And with this, you can basically have a custom screen set up, and it's whether it's a thermometer towards a goal or, you know, the counter towards different things. Maybe it's like, hey, you know, every $25 dip is maybe it's, you know, food for a month for a homeless person. Sorry if I'm getting your cause completely wrong, Salvation Army, but stuff like that, you know, where it's like you can kind of match it up with, you know, where the money is going. So it's a cool way to kind of push people to keep donating towards a goal or, you know, donating towards certain supplies. I think it's really cool to connect the money to the cause, which we've seen work really well with DipJar that I mentioned a couple of times. But in this case, it's very visual, makes it the center of attention, makes it cool, unique, a different experience than you've seen before. So in a way, it's, you know, attracting people to your donation area, kind of like, you know, moths to a light bulb. It's, ooh, what's that? That's kind of different. I haven't seen that before. Let's go check that out. It's a great eye catcher.
Yeah, so with this, you could say tonight we've sent 100 kids to summer camp, or we've fed 500 people in Miami, or it really equates the donation amount to what you say that amount can serve to what the people at that event have accomplished in that time period.
Yeah, I think thanks for helping me connect that to the Salvation Army mission there, Lindsay. I love it. But in this case, you know, you would work with me directly to create that custom screen, and, you know, we'd give you like a mock-up, give your full approval, and that can change as many times as it can throughout the year. And there's a lot of service there to have us, you know, help you and work with you for each and every event to make you successful. And on that note, you know, we all are great at fundraising tips and ideas. We don't exactly do these webinars every single week, but, you know, me personally, other members of my team are available for phone calls at any time for fundraising consultations, whether or not you have a DipJar. So you can always call and talk and say, hey, we have this event coming up. I would love some ideas. Maybe it's great for DipJar. Maybe it's good for other situations that are not good with DipJars. We're really good at helping you out with that. Okay, so this might be another spot that you can talk about, Lindsay, but I'm just going to go ahead and start. So, you know, what we've seen, just as a very general basis, it might be different per location. But red kettles are not always best with DipJar. Sometimes it works really well, and, you know, sometimes maybe it works great in some locations, but in other locations, hey, it's just a couple of dollars here and there. So I think it's always great not to put all your eggs in one basket and to think about different ideas. One situation I've seen work really well is angel trees. And Lindsay, I think it's great for you to talk about, you know, a little more about how this could fit into angel trees. But I've seen this work really well, you know, around the spot where the Christmas tree is and all the presents. Have a spot with your DipJar and say, hey, instead of buying a present, you can have this DipJar out and people can donate. And just as an example, Salvation Army Chattanooga, in 2017, they raised over $4,000. And they don't have, you know, like 10 DipJars or anything. I think they have maybe there's 3 or 4. And just having them out, having volunteers near the DipJar, and, you know, just talking to people who are interested in getting gifts, but maybe didn't have all the time to go and search throughout them all. So that's a great idea. Lindsay, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that, if I just stole your spot.
Yeah, it's fine. I know a lot of our locations have an angel tree at the mall. Again, we would recommend it being at a manned spot by a volunteer and not just leaving the DipJar out there by its lonesome. But if you've got a place where people are walking by, checking out the angel tree, it's another opportunity if they don't want to take the time to grab an angel, go shopping, bring it back, to just say, you know, giving now will help us support, you know, a kid on the angel tree. We need $50 or $100. Another great spot for your angel tree program is in your warehouse. With the amount of volunteers you have coming in and out all the time, we've had open houses with your advisory board, your donors, your women's auxiliary, coming through. As soon as they see the tour and they hear the message and they see these toys are helping real children in their community, they're moved to give right then. And DipJar is a great way to help them accomplish that and kind of end it on that kind of a giving note. because by the time you're doing tours in your Christmas warehouse, you're kind of at the end of that process, but you still have maybe some forgotten angels that you need funds to shop for, and anything that you can do to try to have a call to action that will help you in that moment is always a good thing. And so I think DipJar kind of fills that. Well, I want to do something right now. Do you have any angels I can adopt? How could I want to write you a check. I want to give you cash. Let me go buy you a bike. DipJar kind of fills that right then at the end of your tour, or if you're having some kind of Christmas cookies and punch reception in your warehouse, or you've got all the volunteers coming in and out. It's a very practical way that they can help the program if they just are kind of strapped for time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great to hear, and I think that reminds me of a lot of food banks have that same kind of thing where they have a big warehouse, a lot of volunteers in and out, maybe one volunteer that they do it once a year, twice a year, but they still have a lot of folks going in and out, and it's just great to have their dip jars like on the way out. It's, hey, thank you for your time. If you want to donate, that'd be really great, but we love you for helping out. So I think we're going to talk about paper kettles too, but while we do that, if you all have any other ideas, it'd be great to have this chat room as like a nice thought sharing space. So if anything other pops up, it'd be really great to hear. But let's talk about paper kettles, and then Walter, I see your question. We'll get to it right after. So Lindsay, I guess talk about your partnership with Walgreens and how that's a good opportunity, and then we can talk about other stuff too.
Good. Yeah, so we've had partnership in the past with Walgreens for kettles, but oftentimes they really don't do that well. So maybe we can think about exploring paper kettles and dip jars. Chad will speak about this when we get to coffee shops, but they tend to work a little bit better the more local the company. But if we already have some kind of partnership at scale to where people are checking out at a register, we can explore that dip jar point of sale idea, and then also have the paper kettles or paper shields. They're available at the trade department, to where it's just a physical ask and it's a physical reminder that they're seeing in front of them. Again, this would play at restaurants or coffee shops or other local places too. But try to think of something to where it's not just dependent on the person at the register saying like, hey, do you want to give? Do you want to give? Do you want to give? If they see these little paper kettles with people's names on them, you're wondering like, well, what do they do? How do I get my name on there? It kind of helps that ask happen, and not always have to rely on the person that you've left the dip jar with.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I guess, Walter, just to address your question, I think with the dip jar at the Kettle, basically what we've seen is, sometimes I've seen it kind of both ways. Maybe you'll have it at $1, $2, something pretty low, and maybe you get 10, 20 dips a day, every couple of days, and it's pretty good, and it's $40, and that's awesome. But what I see a lot happen is maybe you do either pretty good in some locations, pretty just okay in other locations, just amount of foot traffic if people are interested, and then the dip jars just kind of get stuffed in the closet the rest of the year. So it isn't necessarily that the kettles are exactly a terrible use case. They're pretty good, but I think there's a lot of different opportunities here that we can think of. So maybe if you have, 5, 10 dip jars, I wouldn't exactly put all 5, 10 dip jars at all kettles. I would think about, hey, maybe let's do 3 dip jars at our biggest spots, and then use our other 5 dip jars for our events that we have throughout Christmas. So just an idea. And this is, all about giving you different ideas beyond the red kettle. Of course, the red kettle is great, and it's not something that, we're able to really fix because it's, it's a proven way that you all that collect donations. And, it's an awesome way that, the Salvation Army is really known for. So I think it's great, not to fix it, but something, where it's, we're here to give you awesome ideas that, hey, maybe let's not do 5, 10 dip jars at kettles this year. Let's do a little bit and then focus a lot of our efforts with dip jar elsewhere. And bring in much more donations. Oh, go ahead.
If you do want to use them at kettles, the more you use them throughout the rest of the year, the more your community will just get used to what it is and how to use it. Or say, oh, I was at the Angel Tree and I saw it there, or I volunteered in the warehouse and I saw it there. I was at the gala and I gave to it. It will start becoming a culture that they associate with the Salvation Army as a legitimate and safe way to donate. So the more we use it, I think, throughout the year, the better it could be for kettles and kettle marketing.
Totally. Randy Lynn, let me answer your question real quick. Is there a reason we don't always see the donor's name on the report? I believe it's almost all cards, you'll have a first and last name on there. Sometimes due to user error or maybe privacy on the card, you might not get that. And that's something that's pretty common in a lot of credit card swipes, like PayPal and Square. We're trying our best to make sure that you get that. In terms of contact information for follow-ups and thank yous, that information isn't available on a credit card swipe. It could be something where, if we had some sort of like iPad attachment and had like 5 steps to put everything in, that's not exactly what we're about. We're about spontaneous, fast giving. And I think with this, with DipJar, you're able to, raise a lot more than you would with something like that. But, we always think it's a great idea just to write, maybe it's first and last name, and email on a quick little business card or something like that with, with your volunteer and have that manually linked. But just an idea for there to get around that.
Something that we did in Clearwater at a golf tournament to try to capture a little bit more donor information, and you can only do this if it's not a fast-paced kind of scenario, is as they dipped, we said, if you want a receipt later, if you want us to send you something afterwards, just give us your first name, last name, email address. So that was kind of a way that we went around that, but it is a little bit, takes a little bit more time for the donor. So it has to be kind of the right setting. So to answer Sharna's question about what donor information they get, it's generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, it's first name, last name, if it's available on the card, and then the donation amount and date.
Correct.
Transaction.
Yep. All correct. And you get, in terms of date, it's also time. So you can, and you're able to like organize it pretty well. So let's say if you have one day coming up, and these 3 dip jars are used for, a live auction, you can call these live auction dip jars, May 10th. And then it's okay, great. It's nice to know that all these funds are going for, the live auctions. And you can say, oh, okay, Kyle did, $100 for the live auction. You're able to keep track of it that way. I'm going to answer, let's see, there was, Paul, I'll get to your question later. Aaron, that's really cool you're doing this Red Kettle campaign kickoff. And, I think that's something where Lindsay, tell me if I'm wrong, but is that like a first Red Kettle thing or like the first to kick off the season?
Yeah, so nationally, the Red Kettle season kicks off around Thanksgiving, but then local units can do their own kettle kickoffs, like with their local mayor, their media partners, things like that.
That's really cool. I think that's awesome. A great way to, say, hey, you can donate, $100 right now, and especially if you have the mayor or some kind of, big local name, give them the opportunity to give big. Paul, I'm going to get around to your question probably in the Q&A section after this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of, go kind of fast with this coffee shops and restaurants. This is all going to be available later. And we have, excuse me, we have a great video of someone who has done this very well in the past, who kind of explains all the steps and how to do this. But I'm just going to go ahead and give you the most, brief lecture and not read word for word off here. I promise. Basically, with coffee shops and restaurants, there's 3 steps to do this. I think it's always great to think ahead. Local restaurants are usually better than chains, mostly because something like Starbucks is really hard to get through that red tape. It might take months and months to convince a Starbucks region to get your dip jar in the location. With that being said, local restaurants and coffee shops are also very focused on their community. So you can say, hey, it'd be really great if we can get this dip jar in here and we can help you, do some cause marketing. Let's help you look good towards the community, but also help us, reach your customers. So it's a nice win-win situation. So I think it's always great to ask yourself, how can you entice your donors to donate? And I think it's always great in a perfect world to have to have the cashier, ask each person if they want to donate to Salvation Army. But it's great, if even if that's not possible, it's great to have this all set up to where, hey, it's nice signage, the donation's connected to where people know where the money is going, and maybe they get something in return. Maybe it's a free coffee at the next visit. So it's always cool to come up with ideas. Lindsay, yes, the recording will show comments. So it'd be great to have all this so people have the context of what comments are being asked when. All right, moving on to the next slide. Step 2, as show up prepared and make an offer they can't refuse. This top right here is Jared from $4. He's visited a lot of different coffee shops and a lot of different breweries and different restaurants in Portland and the Seattle, Washington areas. And he's really good at basically giving people an offer they can't refuse, and making it a really easy setup to where he'll say, hey, I'll print coupon codes for you. I'll do a lot of work on my end where all you have to do is say yes and maybe tell your people, hey, you could just ask every person to donate. And for them, it could be a really cool scenario where they get people back in the door. In this case, it's a printed card where it's like a free burrito your next visit, or it's a free coffee your next visit. And to keep basically with that, the whole next visit is really important because in the restaurant's heads and the restaurant owners' heads, their kind of light bulb goes off because it's really, really important to get people revisiting restaurants, revisiting coffee shops. I think it's something like 30% of people only go to a place once and then never again. So it's really hard to get people coming back for a second time, for a third time. So I think that's really important and to understand that. Do it really easy for, on their end and, show up not exactly in rush hour, maybe show up right when they open, when, the owner just gets there, they're still cleaning the place and maybe, there's not exactly someone who's there to, rushing customers through the line. I think it's great to have the dip jar with you when you first go and to say, hey, it'd be great to have this thing here. And, of course, dip jar, even for me, for sometimes, it's hard to describe to someone who's never seen one before. It's this donation jar, it's a set dollar amount. It just gets a little bit confusing for people who have never seen a dip jar before. It's kind of telling a blind person what colors are. So I think it's great to, have be like really prepared and make it really easy for people. Step 3 is to execute and follow up. This is a picture on the top right of your dashboard. And it looks like when you have a lot of different locations. This nonprofit I'm working with very closely, they have a lot of dip jars. They're actually a Jewish nonprofit in New York. And they have a lot of dip jars in different places that cater to the Jewish community in their area. And for them, they're very targeted at kosher locations and places that, people would kind of say, oh, wow, this is really amazing that you're doing this for my community. So I think it's really great, to connect that to your cause. It's like there's coffee shops out there that really cater to nonprofits and have, a sense of giving around them. I think it's great to find those, places that are already in line with giving and to, work with them more closely than others. Lindsay, we talked about, focusing on restaurants and coffee shops where you pay at the counter and, and that's all done in one place. So I think it's really great to, pay at the counter and then maybe the cashier asks them, hey, if you want to donate, get a free hat or get a t-shirt, get a coffee your next visit, get something to kind of, entice people to donate. It's great. A fuzzy feeling is great, but sometimes it might not entice everybody. So I think it's really good to, give people an opportunity to get something with their donation. And, by giving them something, it's a good way to get your dollar amount a little higher than maybe something like $3, $5. It could be something where, hey, if you get a hat and the hat could be worth $15, a hat could be worth, $20, a t-shirt for $20. So if you want to, donate and get a Salvation Army t-shirt, people will go for that, or at least more people would than a plain $5 donation. And I think, with that, it's a good way to get more people to donate, and you won't see that many people turned off by that kind of like mid-level giving amount. Of course, $5 is great, but it might not work in all scenarios. This might be a good way to where, hey, we're getting one dip a day, $20 a day, $100 a week, not too bad. It really isn't. But on the bright side, it could be something where there's a lot of upside here. Where if you have maybe 3 different coffee shops, each doing $25 to $50 a day, that's a lot of upside per week, per month, and that's a lot of a situation where you're not doing too much work there, and it's kind of earning money for you, earning donations for your cause and for your location. I'm not sure if I missed anything, Lindsay, that you might want to jump on this before we move on.
Yeah, we've got a location that I got some feedback about that targeted places that you check out at the register, targeted restaurants at Christmas. They basically thought of the dip jar as the new updated countertop kettle. So even if it's targeted to like a seasonal ask to have the dip jar there, maybe think of places in the past that you've had a countertop kettle those may be good conversations to start with trading over those to DipJar. It's obviously more secure, it's more engaging, things like that. And we do have a location here in Florida, Tallahassee. I was working with a local coffee shop that has 3 locations to have DipJars there this coming Christmas season. So shout out to Margot and the Tallahassee team. We're excited to see kind of how that partnership works out and how we can maybe expand that. And just something you touched on earlier, DipJar does have a like a one-sheeter on like best practices, like how to approach somebody for the first time, just some best tips and some ideas on how to kind of talk someone through this that, again, may not understand what a DipJar is, and maybe they'd like to give back to charity and they don't really know how. So they have those resources available to you, so we can send those on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I'll be planning to follow up with a lot of information with that. We have our one sheeter of kind of like a how-to. We have a nice video that I mentioned of that guy Jared from Dollar for Portland in the Oregon, Washington area, who's really good at this, who just kind of gives you a how-to from start to finish. And a lot of these ideas are actually from him. And I know we met with him a couple of years ago, and we're like, oh wow, this is awesome. You got to tell everybody about this. So I think it's a lot of ideas that that we've gotten from other organizations that have had success, and it's our duty to kind of like help you out and transfer all those ideas. So I'm going to go on to the Q&A section. Feel free to ask to jump to a different slide, and we could talk about that subject. If you have any questions, now's the time. Of course, I'm always available via email. There's my email right here. Wow, look at it, chad.con@dipjar.com. There's our lovely logo. So feel free to ask any questions. If there's any support things, just say, hey, like Chad, this is the problem we're having, and we'll follow up. I think it's really great to note that we're really good at helping you with support. Some of you have had DipJars for several years now, maybe it's 3 years, and while we were really good back then, of course we're always improving. So maybe there's stuff where, hey, my DipJar is really bad at connecting for whatever reason, and we go, oh my gosh, your modem is so old. Let's fix it for you. Let's make it better. And we're really good at offering that service for you, and being really readily available. On our site, on DipJar.com, there's a chat box with that has me in there and several of my coworkers. So we're really here to help you 24/7 and provide awesome support. I think people like that. And if for some reason you had a problem and you're not being answered, let me know. But it seems like everyone's decently happy here. Aaron, that's a great question. I love that question. If we order a DipJar today, when would we receive it? On that note of customer service, if you have a certain event date coming up, let us know, and we'll definitely ensure. Hey, if it's May 18th, if you have an event date that day and you want a DipJar, we can definitely get it to you. But basically, Aaron, without making that notice for us in terms of, hey, this is when our next event is, about 1 to 2 weeks. So we're really good at getting those out to you, and that's with your logo as well. So we're really good at helping you out. And just so everyone knows, we have white DipJars available. I know there's some pictures of some old red DipJars. Right now, it's the white DipJar with the red Salvation Army logo. Margot, has anyone used them to get kids sponsored for camp? And if so, what type of locations? Lindsay, I'm not sure if you have any idea on that.
Yeah, the best thing for the DipJar, unless it is at an event that is specifically sponsoring a specific program, if you have them out in the community, it's generally better to be a kind of like a general ask, unless it's tied to a bigger marketing effort. Obviously you don't want to make promises that this donation is going to go to something that it may not go to. But if you're doing a camp campaign, there's a little sign that goes with the DipJar, and you can say every $250 or every $25 sends one child to camp for a day, or things like that. So you can certainly use them to fundraise for any program through any of the same methods that we've mentioned. I would just be very clear on, obviously where those funds are going.
Yeah, totally. So the DipJars come with a sign holder that attaches magnetically to the back. It has a generic sign, but we see a ton of people making their own signs, and people get super creative. There's a lot of pictures on our social media. If you go #DipJar on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we always try and share people's ideas. So there's a lot of stuff there. Also on our blog, so there's a lot of ideas there. That being said, I just worked with the YMCA of Licking County. Yes, Licking County, that's a real place. I'm not exactly sure where it is, to be honest, but they did a really good job with their DipJar and Dipcast. And on the Dipcast, basically they said, every $25 dip sends a kid to camp for a day. And I think to have that connection and to have that tally go up, by the end of the day, they're able to say, hey, we sent 72 kids to camp. I forget, something like that. I forget what the actual number was, but it's really cool to say, hey, wow, 72 kids to camp. That was an amazing day, and so happy we were able to do that. So it was really cool to connect that with the Dipcast, just as an example. Starner, are they battery operated? Are there battery operated DipJars, or do they all require a power source? Basically, all the DipJars require a power source. We have a battery in our store that works 11 hours a day. So just as an example, it would work well for the kettles, but it would also work well in a lot of different scenarios. Let's say if you have an event, people are walking around, or maybe if you're out on the golf course at a 5K, wherever. So those batteries work really well. They're in our store, so you can go ahead and check those out. And our store's on our website, so feel free to go to our website and press store to see pricing. Talk to a representative. We're all here to help and answer any questions. We have a good FAQ page, and of course, I'm here personally. I'll be reaching out after this, so I'm here to help with any other questions and talk about any other specific events. So I know we just crossed the 45-minute mark. Congratulations for staying with me for so long. Lindsay, I'm not sure if you have any last words, but I'll give people a couple more minutes to kind of last question in. And again, we'll be available.
I know one question that we've gotten before is how someone can get a receipt. And they can do that through the DipJar website. Is that correct?
That's actually something we don't have available anymore. Mostly because anymore, correct. And mostly because that's something that most people haven't really used too much. So we said hey, let's clean up the website and push our efforts elsewhere. And that's more towards better customer service, fundraising help, a lot of stuff that we're more so now focused on, and giving you all what you want. So basically, we see a very, very low percentage of people asking for receipts. And with that, we always say, we're always here to, if a donor writes in, says, hey, I donated at this event, we'd always connect them with you and say, or point them in the right direction. And I think it's always good, if people want a receipt, just to, send them a direct email for a thank you, if they reach out. And, and just in terms of tax regulation, all donations under $250 don't need an actual thank you. And the donation shows up on the donor's bank account with your org listed. So it could be, whatever you have in the dashboard, whether it's Salvation Army South, Southern, Western, your territory, and sometimes your location, depending on how you entered that. But basically, you can customize how the donor sees your donation on the bank statement. Really cool. Thank you, Aaron. Can corps transfer ownerships to DipJars? In some situations, I think it's best just to write into the DipJar website and ask, or I'll follow up with you via email as well, just so I can talk about your exact scenario. Sometimes yes, a lot of times no. It depends on a lot of things, but I'll follow up with you after. Paul, sorry I stepped out. We'll check recording. Thanks, Paul. Let's see if another Salvation Army has
same question.
Oh, same questions. Oh, yeah. Paul, Aaron, we'll work with it. We'll work with you guys later. Maybe we can work something out. But I know a lot of DipJars. I'm trying to think. There's so many DipJars out there with the Salvation Army doing a lot of awesome stuff. So hopefully we can work something out. And if not, we'll talk about other options. But okay, great. So I'm going to give you one very last minute for questions, but I guess we'll start to sign off. Thank you everyone for coming. Pretty much everyone's stuck in. We still have 17 people in here. I think we started off with a strong 22. Thank you everyone for chiming in. Really cool to see everyone chime in saying where they're from. So yeah, that's really great. Caesar Watts from Loudoun County, of course.
Loudoun.
Loudoun
County.
Loudoun County. Oh my goodness.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you everybody. And Leslie from Fredericksburg, everyone's here. So great. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Great. So Paul, I'm happy you're happy. I'm happy everyone's happy. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Have a great day.